Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For anyone that doesn't know, my name is Carly and I am a twin mom to Everett and Amelia via IVF, and today I am going to talk about some sad stories all about their reflux and GERD issues that we've been dealing with and how we got past it with Everett, and then with Amelia how we are still dealing with her intolerances and allergies. This might be kind of a boring video because it's going to be just a lot of me talking, so I'll try not to be too boring, but for anybody that is going through these issues, hopefully it can be super informational for you and maybe help you out and help you avoid some of the mistakes that we made. It's hard for me to remember everything because it's been going on since they were born, but I'm going to try. And then also some things might be out of chronological order. It's kind of hard to remember like every doctor appointment because we were back and forth to the doctor so many times, not just for the reflux issues, but just their checkups and all that goes involved with newborns, and then on top of that, newborn twins that each had their own issues here and there, so lots of doctor's appointments. So anyway, I will stop rambling and I will just get into all the information for you. So first things first is how we noticed that the babies had an issue going on. When I first started breastfeeding them, their latches were hard to deal with. I don't know if that had anything to do with their reflux or anything like that, but they both had some latching issues. They ended up clipping their tongue ties. They had little tongue ties each, so the doctors clipped those. Their latches eventually got better and they both started nursing like regularly and really good. I would do tandem nursing with them for at least the first 2 months, and that was really hard in and of itself. It saved lots of time, but it was just hard because of their reflux. So with Everett, our boy, they diagnosed him with what is called a happy spitter. And what that is that he would spit up a ton. And I'm not just like talking the little baby spit up. Like I would hold my hand like this with a receiving blanket over it, ditch the burp cloths if you're dealing with spit uppy babies. Those teeny tiny little squares do nothing for refluxy babies. I pretty much just use those as washcloths. So I got the big receiving blankets because they're really thick and they absorb a lot. And I would literally put it over my hand and hold their spit up like as if it was a cup. And Everett spit up more than Amelia, more volume. And so he would just so much after every single feed. And this started probably like very early on because they were already on medicine by like a month or two. So very early on, and Amelia, she at the same time, it all started happening all around the same time, she would just arch and cry after every single feed. She would still spit up also like a decent amount, but not projectile crazy amounts like Everett. But she did spit up a lot too. But the main thing with her is she would cry. Everett did not cry. I honestly, I had anxiety to even feed her. Like I didn't want to feed her because I felt so bad that she was in pain after I fed her every single time. And so we were back and forth to the doctor. I had asked the doctor about eliminating some food groups because, and this was early on, like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and they originally had said, you know, you as a new mom and breastfeeding and having twins, you're already going through so much. They were worried that if I were to get really strict with my diet right from the beginning, I might get into like a postpartum depression, or it just might be harder for me. That's just, thankfully, knock on wood, that wasn't my mindset around it at all. Like I wanted to help my baby. I didn't care about myself. I'm not a super emotional person in general. Like, I like can cry at movies and stuff, but I'm just like, I am not an emotional person. So I think that for me, like that emotional aspect of like, oh, I'm going through so much. It wasn't there, and so that I don't think would have been an issue for me had I started eliminating the food from the beginning. But anyway, she was worried about that, and so she was like, don't do it yet. After speaking to her, I kind of saw Amelia cry a few more times, did my own like Googling, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna take out dairy. The reason I started with dairy is there was a few times where Dean, my husband, had gone out and got me like Dairy Queen, DQ, and like a Blizzard or whatever. And then I noticed that she had a really upset stomach after, or she'd cry after. And I was like, was that the DQ? Or like, I think the same day that I noticed that I also had a mimosa. So I eliminated alcohol, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna have like even one drink. And so I did that, and then I had ice cream again, and I noticed that she was crying again. So I eliminated dairy on my own even after I spoke to the doctor, because I was like, well, I'm noticing these changes. So just to let you know, doctors obviously, they know what they're talking about, and I 100% can see where she was worried about me as the mom, because you're going through a lot. You've got this huge hormone dump after you give birth and all these things. However, you are the advocate for your own baby. You know your baby more than anybody else. The doctor sees them every few weeks or every few months. You see them every single day. So even if your doctor does tell you something like that, but you notice a change yourself, you know, do your own research and take it upon yourself to make a change. I am so thankful that I decided to eliminate dairy at that time. It wasn't just dairy that she was having pain with, but I knew as a mom watching my baby that made a huge difference. Every time I had a huge like dose of dairy, ice cream, whatever, she would cry. So I eliminated dairy first. And then we had a scare with Amelia maybe after a week or two, maybe just a week of me eliminating dairy, where she did a huge forceful vomit basically. And our doctor had told us, like, if they're spitting up and it doesn't seem forced, they're just spitting up. She had explained like there's something in their esophagus that isn't fully closed yet, and so it's like a flap that opens and closes, so it's hard for them to keep food down. So that's why babies spit up. It can be normal to be a happy spitter like Everett and spit up lots and lots of your food. With Amelia, they said, you know, try to see if it's like a forceful spit up. So she had a big episode where it was a really, like, it seemed forced. Like, it seemed like, so, like, they asked me to measure, like, think of a measurement. It was probably like a cup or two of liquid. That's how much. So much all over the ground. We called the doctor. It was like a middle of the night feed. Took her in to see the on-call doctor the next day, and that doctor had said, yes, go ahead and start eliminating. If you're already doing dairy, you know, it seems like she's having some more issues, start eliminating more. So this was around 1 month old. I started eliminating dairy, soy, eggs, and nuts for Amelia. Obviously, I was breastfeeding both babies, so Everett had without that stuff too. It did not change his happy spitting whatsoever. None of my diet changes made him not spit up any more than he already did. So he was diagnosed as a happy spitter, spit up tons constantly until we started solids, and I'll get more into that later. But now I'm mainly going to be talking about Amelia because he was a happy spitter. That's about it. Amelia, I had to eliminate all those things. So I did notice a change in her once I started eliminating those things. It did really, really help. It was hard. Eliminating those things was hard. I will do another video on if you're having to do an elimination diet and you're having to cut out those things, just some ideas and food that I ended up finding, because there would be days where I just would eat like granola bars that didn't have that stuff in it, or I just couldn't figure out what to eat because my brain just wasn't wired to look at those food groups, and now it's really easy for me because obviously I've been a year and a half into it. But they had me eliminate those things, and then they also sent us to an ultrasound with a radiologist to do an ultrasound on her belly. This was at about 2 months that we had to do the ultrasound on her belly, and they wanted to make sure that she didn't have any blockages in her airways or in her tummy or esophagus that was causing like her to have to spit up forcefully. And it turned out that she was fine. Everything was normal. She just had GERD. GERD is gastroesophageal reflux disease. That is what Amelia was diagnosed with. Then they also put her on famotidine. They did this for Everett and Amelia. I don't remember if we went on the medicine before or after her ultrasound appointment, but I know that they put them both on famotidine to try to help keep their food, milk, down and not spit it back up. I really don't know if it helped Everett at all. I think he still spit up the same, but we kept him on it just in case. Amelia, it wasn't helping with anything. She was still crying and upset. So we ended up moving to a stronger medication called omeprazole. I did show some of this in my day in the life with a 2-month-old. So the omeprazole was, I think, given twice a day, once or twice a day, and it does change the chemicals in their stomach to try to hold food down. So between all the ultrasound appointments and going back and forth on the medication, getting to the omeprazole, we had seen a GI specialist for babies for Amelia. So our regular doctor, I think, prescribed the famotidine, and when it wasn't working for Amelia, she recommended we go to a GI doctor, and the GI doctor had changed her to the omeprazole. This was all during COVID, so we saw the GI doctor, I think, once in person, maybe twice in person. The rest was all over Zoom, which is also hard. So we met with the GI doctor. They put her on the omeprazole. Then we ended up going to talk to a nutritionist for babies as well. This was all through Zoom, and it was through our children's hospital that we have in our bigger city, Portland. And they had recommended I take out pea protein and coffee as well because she was still having lots of pain. So I ended up doing that. So there was a few months where I wasn't having soy, eggs, dairy, nuts, pea protein, or coffee, which is crazy. It's just so much, but they just weren't sure what it was that was causing her issues. After a few months of eliminating all of these things, having her on the omeprazole, she started doing a lot better. She stopped crying after every single feed, and she was just like a whole different baby. I slowly ended up adding back in coffee. I would do like 1 cup of half calf and then breastfeed her and monitor her and see how she did. And I was able to incorporate coffee back in after a few months of being off of it, and it didn't seem to like cause her any issues. The pea protein, if I would have like a protein shake that is super concentrated pea protein, she would get a tiny bit of upset stomach, but not bad. And so I just didn't do the protein shakes. I originally had been trying to do protein shakes because I was trying to figure out like how do I get more calories and whatever into my diet. And I didn't have a whole lot of ideas for food I could eat. But then I noticed that that wasn't doing good for her. One thing I will add is that eliminating all those foods and breastfeeding twins, I ended up losing tons of weight super fast. I think I probably wasn't having a whole lot of calories. I probably was not eating like that great or nutritious. I was eating a lot of toast, a lot of avocado, a lot of like oat milk, yogurt, and things like that. But I did lose a ton of weight, and then my hair fell out, like tons and tons and tons. I still have like the regrowth happening. You would think I had bangs. I did not. It's where my hair grew out from it all falling out. I ended up chopping it off because my hair was so thin and stringy from how much had fallen out. The nutritionist said yes, it was probably postpartum hair loss, but also coupled with protein deficiency, because I had cut out dairy, which is a lot of protein. I had cut out eggs, which is a lot of protein. So I naturally just wasn't eating as much protein as I used to, or as I probably needed. And so she thinks that that was also why my hair fell out a lot. So if you are having to eliminate eggs and dairy, I strongly encourage you to try to up your meat intake, or get protein other places if you can, because it did make my hair fall out like insane amounts. So moving forward, I know I told you this is going to be a lot of talking. After adding a few things back in while I was just nursing, the pea protein and the caffeine, we went on to try solids for the kids. They said that starting solids would really help keep the food down and keep the milk in their tummies. And so they had cleared us to start solids as soon as the babies had good head and neck control and could sit up well. So this could have been as early as 4 months. My kids didn't really get there until about 5 months. I wanted to wait till they were both there. I think Amelia had been able to sit up a little straighter and hold her head up easier first, but I wanted to wait till they were both doing it so that they could stay on the same schedule and it wouldn't be confusing for me or for my mom who was watching the kids while I worked. And so we started with the baby cereal. We did the Earth's Best baby cereal for them that was recommended by our doctor, and that is when Everett's spit up reduced. He still spit up a good amount, but it did help it reduce. It helped him keep his food in his little belly. And then Amelia, she started doing a lot better with all the elimination, and then we were able to finally wean her off of her omeprazole once we started the solids. So after about a month of solids, then, you know, we talked to the doctor and they said, if you feel comfortable, we can wean her off so that she doesn't have to depend on this for the rest of her life, possibly, because it is changing the chemicals in her stomach. So we really didn't want that, so we were able to wean her off. We weaned Everett off of the famotidine around the same time. I think a little bit earlier, but around 5-6 months, and Amelia off of the medicine at about 6-7 months. So after a few weeks of her having solids and staying consistent and not crying and just doing well. So all of that is what helped us with all of the babies spit up and reflux and everything while I was nursing and while they were babies. Now, going forward, Everett just kind of phased out of spitting up as much. Once we gave him more solids and he got on a regular solids diet, he would just stop spitting up as much. And then once he could roll over too, he could get the burps out himself easily. And so he just naturally progressed off of spitting up all the way up until he was probably like 8-9 months and then on. And then when we stopped nursing, obviously he doesn't spit up anymore. Amelia, her symptoms got way better with the elimination diet. And then the medicine really helped her, and then the solids really helped her. And then same thing, she phased out of spitting up. But she is not phased out of the allergies and intolerances. So I will talk about those in just a minute, but I wanted to also talk about the things that helped them while they were having the reflux issues. So things that we did for their reflux is we elevated their bassinet a little bit. So we rolled up a receiving blanket and we put it underneath their mattress pad. So it was like lifted up the mattress pad, put the rolled up receiving blanket underneath there so their heads were elevated a little bit when they slept. The things we did to help them while they were going through the reflux is we rolled up a receiving blanket and we put it underneath their mattress pad in the bassinet. The reason we put it underneath is so that they couldn't suffocate on it or anything like that, but it did elevate their heads just enough to keep some of the spit up down while they were sleeping. And they were in their, they're not called sleep sacks, that's what they sleep in now. I'm like forgetting what they're called. You know, the things that wrap them up in Velcro. Anyway, I think you know what I'm talking about. They were bundled up in those, and so they couldn't, you know, suffocate themselves or get anything. Once they started rolling over, obviously we put them into the sleep sacks and they had access to their arms, and they were doing a lot better. We took out the receiving blanket because they said once they can roll over and sleep on their tummy, that just naturally helped release the burps and things like that, and it helped them not spit up as much. So what we also did is after every single feed, we put them elevated a little bit. So we would sit there with them and we'd put them in like a Bobby lounger, and we would like put it against, I'll try to do it with a pillow. We would like put them in the Boppy lounger to where it was kind of crunched like this against the back of the couch or a pillow, or we would put a pillow underneath their head. And so basically we would sit them up a little bit. If we could, we would hold them. If my husband was home or my mom was home to help me, one would hold the baby for 15 minutes and burp them and sit them up to keep their food down while I nursed the other one. Or if I was by myself, that's what I would do. I think the Boppy loungers that we used has been recalled now because of babies suffocating. I never left them unattended. I only ever used the Boppy lounger when I was nursing one baby and the other baby just got done eating and I needed to prop them up a little bit. Other ways is like in the little bouncer and the swing. All of those are slightly elevated to where it helps them have their milk basically stay in their belly and not have the reflux come up. Once they lay flat, that's when the reflux happened and they would come back up. Things that we would do to help Amelia when she was going through her issues with the intolerances is we would do the little bicycles with her feet. We'd do little bicycles and then we would push her knees to her chest very gently and then back and then push her knees to her chest and then pull them back out, and that would help release gas and get her little tummy moving. They had us do little massages clockwise on her belly to like try to move the gas bubbles around, help her little tummy. We would give her the Mommy Bliss gas drops and that would help. But honestly, time is what helped the most. So if she had accidental soy or something like that, soy really, really reacts to her. She has a really hard time with soy. It really hurts her tummy. Honestly, I would sit up in the nursery chair and I would just hold her while she slept and I would get no sleep. Like my husband and I would take turns because she would be in so much pain. She couldn't lay down. She couldn't get comfortable. She just wanted to be comforted. So we would take turns holding her. We honestly did not co-sleep with either baby ever. We always laid them down to sleep, even during naps. Like for one, we had twins, so we were always having to help one of the babies. But two, we were just like really advocates of baby safety and all of that. And we knew like all these horror stories and babies, you know, accidental things happening. So we did not co-sleep. If we were up with the baby, like we were up. We were sitting up. We have an adjustable bed that we would literally sit up in our bed and hold her while she slept, or sit up in the nursery chair and hold them while they slept. If one of us started getting tired, we would trade. Obviously that's not ideal, but that's what we did. You could just let them try to sleep through the night and, you know, try to work it out. But she just wanted to be comforted, I think. And I also think being super upright helped her little belly. I think it helped the acid not come up. So on top of gas and all of that, she would have acid reflux. So I think that really hurt her little throat. That is what we did to help them during their times of pain. So now I will move on to all of Amelia's appointments with allergy specialists and what we're doing now. So after she started solids, they cleared us to start trying to introduce certain things. The first thing they really wanted us to introduce, and this was talking to the nutritionist, was nuts. They were like, nuts is the worst allergy for kids. Like, we need to get this introduced to her so she doesn't develop a nut allergy, even if she doesn't have a nut allergy now, because we just eliminated everything. So we really didn't know what it was that was truly causing her issues. I knew dairy was one for sure, but we didn't know the other ones if they were for sure. So they were like, just give her some peanut butter. Or no, this was when I was just breastfeeding. They were like, just have some peanut butter. So I had a tablespoon of peanut butter one day and didn't notice a difference. So then the next day I had like a whole, probably 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on a sandwich, and she was losing it. So uncomfortable, crying for 3 days, vomited. She like actually puked, not just spit up, like forceful vomit. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's allergic to nuts. Well, people make mistakes, and I totally made a mistake, and I didn't even think, which I don't know why, because I had been reading so many labels for the past 6-7 months. This was around probably 7 or 8 months. I noticed that the peanut butter I used was Jif peanut butter that has soy in it. So then I realized, well, shoot, now I don't know if it was the soy she was reacting to or if it was the peanut butter she was reacting to. So I went another month or 2, and I had so much anxiety even just trying stuff, because then you feel guilty and you're like, I literally just caused my baby pain for 3 days. All because why? I want to introduce something to her. Like, that was my thought process. But from the doctor's standpoint, they're like, no, you want to reintroduce these things to your baby because you don't want them to develop the allergy if they've grown out of the intolerance. So it doesn't help with the mom guilt though. So I went a few more months, and then I was like, I'm not trying soy and I'm not trying peanut butter, because don't know which one it was, but one of those really hurt her. So I decided dairy. So I started with, they have a dairy ladder. You can Google it. There's all different sorts of ways to do it. I think I found mine on like a Facebook mom group that I am a part of. And they start with doing a baked muffin with baked dairy, and then moving forward to more things. So I had done the baked muffin and she seemed to be doing fine. And then after about 2 or 3 weeks of doing more and more dairy, I noticed that she was super fussy. To this day, I honestly don't know if it was the fact that she's teething. Like, they're going through so much at that time. This was like 8-9 months. They're like learning so many things. They're going through leaps. They're teething. And so I don't know if it was the dairy, but I noticed that she had like worse diapers. She was just more fussy and had a lot of gas. And so I chalked it up to possibly being the dairy, and I didn't want to take chances. So I just did away with the dairy. And since then, she's 20 months now, she has not had dairy. Occasionally here and there, a family member will accidentally give her something that has dairy, and if it's just a little bit, it doesn't do anything to her. From all the research I've done, the dairy milk proteins take a little bit longer to get through their system, and so that could be why if she has an accidental dairy exposure, she doesn't react much. But if she has dairy over time, it hurts her. I'm assuming that that was the case with us. Again, not sure, because it's just an intolerance. It did not show up on an allergy test. So after a few months, she was probably 9+ months, we ended up going and seeing an allergist. When she was too young, they didn't suggest it because they said like it could possibly not work. But after she had gotten further along with all of this stuff, they said an allergist could do some good. So we went and saw an allergist. The allergist suggested to try all of the things that I had eliminated, and then also to try dog dander, because we had noticed that her eyes would get itchy and watery, and she was breaking out in some rashes here and there, and then she had developed eczema. So this poor girl. So the eczema, they said, could have been from that dairy exposure. So that was another reason why I had stopped the dairy, because she was breaking out in eczema everywhere. And so we went into the allergist, and they did a back test with little needles, and they did a controlled side and then an allergy side, and she only reacted to dog dander, which is so sad because we have a dog, and then eggs. I hadn't tried to add eggs back in at any point, so they said because she broke out in hives to eggs, do not give her eggs, do not try eggs while you're nursing, just eliminate it because we don't know if she will have a really bad reaction. They gave us an EpiPen for the egg, and then for the dog, they just said give her Zyrtec. If she's having a breakout, hopefully she will build a tolerance to the dog over time. It's not something that she's having this giant reaction to where they didn't think we needed to get rid of our dog, which would have been absolutely terrible because she was our firstborn baby. But we ended up not really having to give her too much Zyrtec. Sometimes if she like really rolled around all over her, she would react, but really we noticed that she was reacting to the dog more when our dog had injured herself. She had torn her ACL, so we had to get surgery, and she couldn't go outside. So I think she wasn't releasing her hair as naturally outside as she normally did, and it was just collecting inside the house, and it was causing Amelia to have a stronger reaction. Now that she goes back outside more, Amelia hardly ever reacts to her. She jumps all over her, and she's fine. Sometimes if we see she gets a little itchy eyes, we will, oh my gosh, it is April and it is snowing outside right now. I'm sorry. I got really distracted because I'm like, really? It was just now sunny and now it's snowing. That's Oregon for you. So anyway, she does pretty good with our dog, but she has an EpiPen for egg. Fast forward 6 months later, she just did another allergy test. She did a controlled trial of the egg. The allergy test came back positive for egg again. About a month later, we went into the controlled test. They said, you know, she might be able to tolerate baked egg, kind of like the milk ladder. The egg ladder is the same way. The baked egg breaks down the protein more to where the baby or person that is allergic to it might be able to tolerate it. So we did literally the size of a raisin of egg muffin for her, and it wasn't like, it was baked in a muffin with like flour and all of that, but it had egg in the muffin, and she instantly started itching right here. And I was like, oh, she's itching right away. It was so fast that they were like, oh, she could just have an itch. Like, I'm sure that's not it. Like, she literally just swallowed it. Sure enough, broke out in hives right here, right where she started itching. It was instant, which is so scary as mom. Like, that's the safest form of egg, and she reacted to a raisin size piece of it instantly. So they said, nope, we're done. We're not going to continue. She's clearly highly allergic to this. We don't want, she's so small, like we don't want to know what the other further reactions may be if she had more of it. So we failed the egg test. I ordered a few more EpiPens. I'm going to keep them at grandma's house, auntie's house, our house, in our diaper bag. Like, I am now really freaked out about the egg allergy. They still think she may grow out of it. We will see. We had some accidental soy in the last few months. I was eating chicken that was marinated in soy sauce, and I had oranges for her on my same plate. I did not physically see any of the juice touch the orange at all. She ate the orange off my plate and she had a really bad reaction again. She was like crying for 3 days. She puked. She just did not feel good. And it had to have touched the soy in one way or another that I just didn't see. So that's how sensitive she is to soy. We have been able to reintroduce her to nuts. I got peanut butter that did not have soy in it, and she did really, really well with it. So now she can have nuts, all of that. I can finally do almond milk, and well, I always did coconut milk, but I can finally do almond milk and the different like nut butters and things like that. So that has been able to add a lot into her diet. So currently she's 20 months old. We are still egg-free, soy-free, and dairy-free. Now that we just did the egg trial, I think I'm gonna try dairy again. I'm really nervous because I don't want her to get sick, but I think I'm gonna try dairy again. A few other things that we noticed that she's intolerant to throughout this whole process of her starting solids is green beans. She like full-blown puked to green beans. Really, really sad. A few times trying green beans. So we haven't tried it since she was probably like 7-8 months old. And then watermelon, same thing with watermelon. She didn't puke, but she broke out in a huge rash every time she had watermelon. So we haven't tried watermelon since this summer, which she was around 11, 12, 13 months. So green beans and watermelon are next on my list to try along with the dairy. I think I'm going to start with the dairy first. Intolerances are hard. It's really hard because I just want to avoid it altogether. I just want to say, okay, then she can't have these things. But the doctors are convincing me that that's not good. You want them to be able to have things so that they are not developing allergies further down the line. They said that she most likely will grow out of the intolerances by the time she's 4. So they said most kids grow out of them at 1. She obviously didn't. So we're hoping by 4 she grows out of most of these intolerances. I'm praying she grows out of the egg allergy. They said she might, or she might be able to at least tolerate it the older she gets, tolerate the baked egg, whatever. Egg is just in so many things and it's everywhere that it just makes me super nervous for her to have an egg allergy going through school, going through people's homes, anything. Like nobody really, people like are sensitive with nuts and they know that there's a nut allergy. People don't really expect an egg allergy. So it just makes me very nervous. So I'm praying she grows out of that. I know this video was super long and I hope that it wasn't too boring. I hope that I covered everything that I needed to cover and that you may have questions about. If you have more questions or if you want me to cover any other topic more specifically in more detail, feel free to leave a comment down below. I would love to connect with you and just offer my support. This is a crazy process to deal with, and it's super scary and sad to watch your little one so just in pain. So I would love to be able to offer any support or comments or suggestions that I can. So feel free to comment. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to me and tolerating all this talking. If this video was helpful, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and check back in with us. We usually do more entertaining day in the life videos. So hopefully if this one was boring for you, the next one won't be. Thank you so much and have a great day, everybody.